The cold wind cut across my bare shoulders the second the black car pulled away from the valet. I stood there, heels sinking into the soft grass of the estate lawn, as the doorman stiffened and glanced behind me. Then I heard her. "Don't let her in," my mother whispered to the security guard at the entrance, her voice clear as day beneath the twinkling lights strung across the marble pillars. "She'll embarrass us again." Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. The word, again, sliced through me like glass. I hadn't even stepped past the rope. I hadn't opened my mouth. I hadn't caused a scene.
Not this time.
I watched her straighten her pearl necklace, pat her slick blonde hair into place, and smile for the photographers clustered outside the grand fundraiser gates like paparazzi waiting for prey. She always had a way of pretending the past never happened, as if she didn't once shove me into a group therapy facility and erase me from her Christmas cards. The security guard's hand hovered above the earpiece in his jacket. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "this event is by." "I'm on the list," I replied, not moving. My voice was steady, but something inside me cracked. "Check under Madison Hart." He blinked at me. "There's no one by that name on the list." "Of course not. Because my mother made sure of that." I turned quietly. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just walked away, slow, breath tight in my chest. The click of my heels on the cobblestone felt like thunder in my ears. Guests passed by me in ball gowns and tuxedos, perfume hanging thick in the air like false sweetness. No one stopped. No one asked, except for a voice from behind. "Madison." I froze. That voice didn't belong to the crowd. It didn't belong to the board members or the politicians or the greedy donors. That voice belonged to him. Madison Hart. The voice echoed again, this time over a microphone. Everyone stopped talking. The string quartet halted mid-song. I turned around. Standing under a cascade of golden light on the outdoor stage, in a suit that probably cost more than my entire apartment building, was the guest of honor. Tyler James Monroe, the billionaire tech philanthropist everyone had flown in to see. My husband. Well, technically, secretly, and to the horror of every woman in that tent, my legally wedded husband of 6 months. "Everything you're standing on tonight," Tyler said into the mic, his voice calm and controlled, "belongs to her." He pointed to me. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mother's hand dropped from her chest. "She's not just my wife," Tyler continued. "She's the co-founder of the Monroe Impact Fund. And the reason I exist in the first place. You all just didn't know it." My stomach flipped. My mother's jaw twitched. And somewhere in the back, my father, who hadn't looked me in the eye in 10 years, took a step back into the shadows. That was the beginning. But it wasn't revenge yet. No, that would come later. And when it did, it would be darker, deeper, and far more personal than they could ever imagine. Because Tyler wasn't just honoring me that night. He was helping me burn everything they built. The lights were still on me. Hundreds of eyes stared as whispers turned into murmurs and murmurs into full-blown gasps. Phones slipped out of clutches. One woman's champagne glass tilted, spilling down her sequined gown, but she didn't even flinch. All they could see now was me. Tyler walked down the stage, stepped slowly, deliberately, each footstep echoing through the stunned silence. When he reached me, he extended his hand, not with pity, not with apology, but with pride. His other hand slipped gently to the small of my back. I was trembling. He leaned close enough for only me to hear. "I told you," he whispered, voice calm. "Sure, they'd choke on their own lies." I swallowed. My mother's face had gone pale beneath her thick foundation. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. Tyler led me forward. This time, security didn't even blink. The rope was pulled aside, and the daughter they disowned, disrespected, and buried in shame, walked straight into the heart of the empire they thought they ruled. The moment my heels hit the marble inside, I remembered the last time I'd stood here. I was 16, crying in a red satin dress, hiding in the coat room after my mother whispered to a waiter, "If she starts crying again, remove her." That night, they blamed me for ruining the fundraiser. This night, I would own it. Tyler walked me up to the stage again and took the mic one more time. For those of you who were too distracted by gossip columns to notice, he said, eyes locked on my mother and father seated stiffly near the front. This woman built the roots of what became the Monroe Impact Fund. I just had the money. She had the vision. She had the guts. Someone began to clap. Then another. And another. But not them. No. My parents sat frozen, lips pursed, eyes full of panic. Because this wasn't just a social scandal now. This was loss. Loss of control. Loss of image. Loss of power. And they had no idea how deep my plan really went. Earlier, 6 months ago, Tyler and I weren't supposed to be more than a pitch meeting. He was the investor. I was the broken girl with an impossible idea, a fund that would funnel tech profits into mental health services for low-income families. Families like mine. Girls like me, discarded by parents desperate to uphold appearances. He saw something in me that no one else did. Not pity. Not potential. Fire. We worked late. Ate takeout. Built a vision. And then, somewhere between boardrooms and back seats of town cars, we fell into something else. Not love. Not at first. Just understanding. The first time he kissed me, he said, "You don't need to prove anything. But if you're going to make them regret it, I want in." I didn't marry him for revenge. But when we did it, quietly, in a cabin in Vermont, with no guests and no press, I knew deep down this wasn't just about love. It was about reclaiming every part of myself they made me bury. Present. Fundraiser night. After the speech, people swarmed me. Suddenly, I was the most important woman in the room. The whispers turned to awe. Madison Hart Monroe? You're her? I had no idea. She was the one? I thought she was... Wasn't there a scandal years ago? My mother didn't speak to me. Not yet. But I saw her watching. Eyes hard. Fake smile trembling. My father stood beside her like a statue. Face unreadable. Until she couldn't take it anymore. She grabbed a glass of wine from a passing tray, marched to my side, and hissed through gritted teeth. You think this changes anything? They'll always remember what you did. What you are. I stared straight at her. What I am, I said, lifting my chin, is everything you tried to erase. And what they'll remember, starting tonight, is that I came back better than you ever dreamed possible. Her lips trembled. Before she could reply, Tyler returned with a silent nod. My cue. I took the stage again. But not with a speech. With an announcement. Because I hadn't just walked in that night for a dramatic moment. I walked in to take control. Starting tomorrow, I said, the Monroe Impact Fund will begin divesting from every legacy partner who participated in the silencing of vulnerable youth, especially those from wealthy families who treated mental health like a stain instead of a crisis. You could hear the air being sucked out of the room. And then I added, and the first cut is the Heart Foundation. My mother's knees buckled. My father reached for her arm. And for the first time in my life, I smiled. They followed us out to the garden. Not because they wanted to, because they had to. The press was already stirring, and a scandal like this couldn't be buried with a check this time. My mother's heels tapped furiously across the stone as she stormed after us, lips pressed so tight they were almost white. My father, silent as ever, trailed a step behind her like a ghost haunting his own life. Madison, my mother snapped, grabbing my wrist just as I reached the shadow of the arched trellis, where string lights flickered in the wind. You don't understand what you've done. I turned to her slowly. No. You don't understand what you did. Tyler stood just behind me, hands in his pockets, calm, unreadable. He wouldn't speak unless I wanted him to. He knew this wasn't just a confrontation. It was a reckoning. You humiliated me, she hissed, voice low and frantic. In front of every donor, every partner, every person I've worked decades to impress. You mean lie to? I asked, tilting my head. You mean the people you convinced that I was too unstable to be in public? That I belonged in silence? That's not fair, she started. No. I cut her off. What wasn't fair was when I begged you for help at 17, and you told me to pull myself together before I ruined the Christmas party. A pause. The lights above flickered. My father finally stepped forward. Maddie, sweetheart, this isn't the place. Don't call me that, I whispered. You don't get to do that anymore. The silence that followed was so heavy it felt like a fourth person in the garden. They looked different in this light, my parents. Smaller, fragile. And for a flicker of a second, I saw something close to fear pass between them. But I wasn't done. 3 years ago, the embarrassment. I had tried to hide the anxiety, the panic attacks, the nights I couldn't sleep, the mornings I couldn't get out of bed. I was doing everything right. Ivy League school, internships, smiling for gala photos. Until I couldn't anymore. The night of the Heart Foundation's winter ball, I had a breakdown in the marble bathroom stall, my hand over my mouth to muffle the sobs. When I stumbled out, makeup smeared, breath ragged, my mother was there. Her exact words? If you're going to break down, at least do it in private. We're hosting the mayor's wife tonight. The next morning, they had me institutionalized. Not in a place of care, but in a discreet, expensive facility 2 states away. They told the press I was traveling in Europe. They told me nothing. No visits. No letters. No explanation. Just removed. Like a stain. Present. Back in the garden. I stared into my mother's eyes, letting the memory wash through me, not to break, but to own it. You abandoned me, I said, voice shaking now, but not weak. And now, you're upset I walked away before you could do it again? My mother opened her mouth. No sound came out. And then Tyler stepped in, not with anger, with precision. I gave her power because I trusted her more than anyone in that room, he said quietly. Including you. My father's eyes flicked between us. What do you want? He finally asked. Is this just revenge? You want us ruined? No, I said. I want to make sure no other daughter ends up where I did, choking back tears in a marble stall while her mother whispers about the shame of her existence. And then I added, softer this time, and I want you to feel what it's like to be unwelcome somewhere you helped build. That night, we didn't stay long after. The whispers kept growing. The news was already picking it up. Monroe's wife revealed, scandal ties to Hart family. But I didn't care. In the car, Tyler took my hand. You okay? He asked, his voice the only sound that felt real after hours of flashbulbs and fake smiles. No, I said honestly. But I will be. He nodded, pressing a kiss to my hand. There's still more to come. You sure you want to go through with it? I looked out the window as the city blurred past. I've waited my whole life for them to see me. Now they will. On my terms. 2 weeks later, the headlines hadn't died down. In fact, they were multiplying. Heart Foundation caught in family mental health scandal. Daughter speaks out. Monroe Fund pulls $40 million from Hart Partners overnight. Tyler Monroe's secret wife used to be the Hart family outcast. I didn't hide anymore. I didn't lower my eyes when I walked into rooms. I showed up, fully visible, in every meeting, every board presentation, every interview. The world didn't just see Madison Hart anymore. They saw Madison Monroe, and they listened. I had my own office now, 1 floor above Tyler's. Not because he gave it to me, but because I'd earned it. And across that sleek glass desk sat reporters, executives, donors, and people who once ignored my emails now begged for access. But the most unexpected visitor of all? My mother. She walked into the Monroe building like she owned it, still in her pearls, still dressed like old money. But she had bags under her eyes, and the skin around her mouth looked tighter, more worn. I'm not here to fight, she said, voice low. I didn't invite you, I replied, not looking up from my laptop. She stood silently for a second. Then, you made your point. I set the laptop aside and met her eyes. Oh, Mother. You think this was about making a point? She blinked. This is about fixing the system you helped poison. You lied about me. You erased me. Then you built an empire pretending to care about people like me. Her mask cracked slightly. I did what I thought was best. You did what was convenient. She sat down slowly. You're destroying everything your father and I built. I folded my hands.
No.
I'm replacing it with something honest. For the first time in decades, she looked not angry, not superior, just lost. I didn't know how to handle you, she whispered. You were always too much, too intense. I was afraid of what people would say, afraid you'd ruin us. You were afraid of shame, I said. But the only shame was yours. Her eyes filled with tears she couldn't let fall. Is there any way back? For us. I looked at her for a long time. The mother who sent me away, who told strangers I was in Europe while I was locked behind cold steel doors, who only saw me again now because the spotlight had shifted. And then I said calmly, I'm not interested in going back, only forward. She nodded, but her face said she didn't understand. She stood to leave. Before she reached the door, I said, by the way, my lawyer's sending a formal request to audit every Heart Foundation report filed over the last 15 years. If anything's buried, dig it up now. Her back straightened. She didn't turn around. She just walked out. And I exhaled. Flashback. The darkest night. It was snowing that night. I was 19. I'd been out of the facility for 6 months, trying to piece my life together in a tiny studio apartment funded by leftover scholarship money. No phone calls. No birthdays. My family had deleted me. And one night, I sat on the floor of my apartment, holding a bottle of pills, staring at the wall. No lights. No sound. Just pain. And then a knock. It was my old professor, Dr. Lorraine Pearson. A woman who once stayed after class to ask if I was okay when no one else noticed. She brought soup. She sat down beside me. And she didn't say anything for the first hour. Eventually, she said, Madison, do you know how many of the best women I've taught almost didn't survive their mothers? I cried. She stayed. She told me I mattered, even if they didn't think I did. And that night, she saved me. Not them. Not my blood. A stranger did what family refused to. Present day, the press conference. I stood on the stage of the Monroe Foundation's biggest conference yet. Dozens of cameras. Lights. Screens projecting my name. But I didn't talk about money. I talked about silence. I was the daughter they didn't want, I began. Because I cried too loud, because I broke under pressure, because I didn't fit the perfect photo. They sent me away, then acted like I never existed. Gasps rippled again. But I survived, I said louder now. And now we're building something so that girls like me never have to survive alone again. Applause erupted. My mother watched from the back. She didn't clap. But she didn't leave either. That was enough for now. A week later, I sat in a quiet downtown cafe, tucked in the corner near the window. The rain hit the glass in slow, soft waves. Across from me sat Richard Ellison, a powerful name in nonprofit circles. Old money, polished voice, long history with my parents. I'm here on behalf of your mother, he said, folding his hands. She's worried this is getting out of control. She asked me to propose a settlement. I tilted my head. A settlement? He slid a leather folder across the table. Inside, documents. Offers. An absurd sum of money and a public apology drafted by PR firms. She's willing to let you own the foundation, he said. As long as you stop the audits and close the media angle. No more interviews. I stared at the folder for a moment. Then I looked him straight in the eye. She's still trying to buy silence, I said. Just like before. Richard didn't blink. She's trying to save face. And I'm trying to save girls from mothers like her. I said, sliding the folder back. Tell her no. He gave a slow nod. She won't take this well. I know, I said. But it's not about what she can take anymore. It's about what I can give. 2 days later, the gala night. This time, I walked in first. Not a guest. Not a whisper. But the host. I wore black silk. Simple. Sharp. No designer logos. No borrowed jewels. Just confidence that came from surviving the fire they threw me into. As I stepped onto the stage, I scanned the room. My father wasn't there, but my mother was. Tense. Cold. Alone. And this time, she didn't look angry. She looked empty. I raised the mic. Tonight, I began. We launched the Pearson Initiative, named after the professor who showed up when everyone else turned their back. Applause thundered. We will fully fund mental health access in every public school district in the state. And we will do it without needing approval from anyone who once said I was too broken to be believed. All eyes turned to my mother. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me at all. And in a way, she didn't. Because I wasn't her daughter anymore. I was myself. Later that night, Tyler found me outside, standing by the railing overlooking the city. Your mother left early, he said. I didn't turn. She always does. She won't come back, will she? Maybe someday, I said quietly. But I won't be waiting. He reached for my hand. You proud of yourself? I nodded. For the first time, yes. We stood there side by side. No applause. No spotlight. Just the quiet peace of knowing I had finally taken back what was stolen from me. Not just my voice, but my future.